All right, everybody, Everyday Angler here. This is part 2 in the boat project. We are getting ready for some Amazon SeaDek. So let me flip this camera around so I can start. My neighbor's working on some stuff over there. Let me flip this camera around and I'll tell you exactly what the plan is for today. All right, so as you can see, I had some sanding pads and I have an orbital sander that I've sanded this down with. This was very time consuming. Not difficult, but time consuming. And I want to cover, I don't know what these holes were for. I don't know if maybe this thing didn't have foam when they bought it and they filled it with foam. I don't know, but these are going to get covered up by something before I lay SeaDek down. So the plan for the SeaDek, I'm leaving the boat floor alone for now. I'm really just going to do the front deck, probably that seat because I don't want people's butts burning, and the back deck. So the reason, which you probably don't have to sand it, but the reason I am is if you look around, let me get you on that side, or even here and here and over here. Now this just looks like sun damage, so I just don't want, and even you guys know SeaDek is expensive. Even the Amazon SeaDek is expensive, right? So I do not want to put my SeaDek on here and then my paint starts chipping and the SeaDek comes off, right? I just want to do it one time right. That's why we're taking the extra step to sand everything down. Now, that took so long, I started watching some YouTube videos and found that maybe I might be able to get away with stripping it. So I bought some... So I've bought just a little container of citrus strip. I want you to lay on with a brush and then let it sit for 30 minutes to an hour. We're gonna do an hour. And I'm gonna let that sit on the front deck while I use my orbital sander on the back deck again, just so I'm not just standing here doing nothing. I did find, I was using 80 grit yesterday, so I got 60 grit today, and that's probably gonna help it go by faster. Got some gloves, and obviously I've got to take my hatch off, which I want that replaced anyways, but I'm just going to take it out for now. My trolling motor step control is not attached to the boat right now, so I'm just going to move that out of the way, and might just leave that on there, go ahead and strip that too. So that's what we're going to do. This video is going to be like so this video is really going to be just, if you're doing it on your boat, I'm going to find out. I'm going to keep sanding just while this sits, but if this citrus stuff really peels it off good and it's easier, I'm just going to go with that for the rest of the boat instead of sanding it down. Now, even after this stuff peels off the paint, if it does a good job, I'm kind of skeptical, honestly. But even if it does do a good job, I'm still going to run by with a really light grit sanding, just to get a little bit of grip on that aluminum for when I put my glue and my SeaDek down. So today's video, removing paint remover or sanding. Let's see. All right, everybody, I have removed the storage latch, door, whatever, off of this front deck. And as you can see, this deck, it's got kind of like moss or just water oxidization, something like that on top of this paint. So I'm just going to give this thing a light sanding and get that surface dirt and grime off of it before applying the citrus peel to it. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. All right, everybody, got the paint stripper down. I tried to cover as much as I could, but I kind of ran out of trash bags. You can see it's already really working up here, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I went ahead and tested it on one of the pods back here. The clouds just came in. It's not supposed to rain, so I should be good, but you can see it's kind of already coming off of here. And I've got, for the back deck, I've laid this, like I said, I ran out of trash bags, so we're gonna see. For now, packaging says wait 30 minutes, so it is 1:50. So I'll give it till 2:30 just to give it a little extra time. I'm gonna get back to sanding this sucker right here, and we'll see which one works best. I like the sanding. It really took everything off. I got to come back and get some of these stubborn spots, but let's see if the paint stripper at least gives us a head start. Maybe we might just paint strip and then go over with a sander, but let's see. Fire spreading all around my room. All right, first impressions, honestly, I'm impressed. I really did not think this was going to work so well. I messed up. I should have found or made sure I had enough trash bags to, which I had some in the house, I just didn't want to go get them, because this stuff that dried is very hard to deal with, as you can see right here. But I mean, I'm definitely gonna have to sand. It definitely doesn't look, this is all the paint that came off, it definitely doesn't look as good as that over there, but that over there takes a long time. It's not just sanding like that. You got to put pressure and rub to really dig that paint out. But this, it's a good head start. I might go ahead and apply it on the rest of everything, but it really is just a good head start. So I'm gonna go ahead and scrape everything else off of her. I'm gonna go and scrape the pods and that piece I have laying right there, and then I'm gonna get to sanding some more. All right, so let's talk about the final result with the paint stripper, and I'm gonna give you guys some pro tips after my first time using it, because I did mess up on one thing. So it looks pretty good. It took a lot of work out of the sanding. I'm still gonna have to sand all this, but I will say something that was not on the instructions. I just saw people on YouTube doing it, and I know why they did it now. You see that? That's the dried up citrus strip that I did not cover with a trash bag, so it dried up. And that stuff you can see on the edge of all my paint brushings right there. That stuff did the opposite of what it's supposed to do if you let it dry up. This stuff was really nice. It just peeled right off, the wet stuff. If you let it dry up on you, it's bad news. So now I'm gonna find out if I could just sand that and it'll come off, because I'm about to sand this whole front deck, or because I didn't even have trash bags for this deck piece, because that's all dried up, and also my pods. I tried to scrape and you can see how nasty and smudgy it was. Did not work, and that's dried up now too. So I messed up. So make sure you have enough trash bags or whatever you're going to use to cover that stuff, and make sure it stays wet, because if it does not stay wet, it's going to make your job harder rather than easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand that, and it might just come right off with the sanding. In that case, we're good to go, because I'll sand the rest of it. What I'm going to do as a test is get some of the pieces out of the trash can, some of the trash bags I use, and I'm going to reapply and cover it, and see if it reapplied and covered it and staying wet, I can just peel everything off. And if that works easier, that's maybe what I'm gonna have to do to the front deck. But overall, if you're just gonna I mean, look at that. It's a lot of work, but look at this. It's tricky with the orbital sander to get in here, down there, but you know, I've got an angle grinder and stuff like that I can use. Sanding just takes a lot longer, but it does the proper job. It did a lot of good scraping of the paint. It looks like this was almost painted like a beige or something before. So it was 2 coats of paint, so that's pretty deep. And if you were actually only going to paint strip your deck and get it ready for SeaDek, I would be comfortable for it to look like that. I'd have to do at least 3 coats, or what I just did 3 times. So I don't know. I really don't know. It really probably also just depends on the type of paint. This is an old boat. I wouldn't be surprised if this is some type of poisonous paint or something, right? So sanding is better, but I'm gonna get to sanding the front deck now, and we're gonna see what that looks like. All right, everybody, so trying to sand on what I just stripped did not work out. You can see my sander, it kind of turns the paint into Play-Doh, just like that. So I was kind of like, I'm worried that I'm smudging it into the aluminum, you know, which is not a good thing. And it just clogs up and I don't have too many of these, so it just, you know, clogs up the sandpaper itself. So one of two things I'm thinking I let this sit here for like a day, and I don't know if that paint will go back to its regular texture or if it's gonna stay Play-Doh, right? You get what I'm saying? Because this Play-Doh stuff is just smearing all over the place. It's not really coming off like it does when it's nice and dry over here. Or I may just have to reapply another coat and make sure I properly mask everything and I properly scrape everything off, which is what I'm thinking is going to have to happen, unless I want to wait a day and see if in a day that stuff dries up real good and I can sand it down, right? So really, if I could go back, I mean, it's hard to say. This takes a lot longer, but look how clean it is. And it's already, you know, gritty and ready for some glue. So I kind of went backwards today, honestly. Well, no, I didn't. I mean, I stripped a lot of paint off. It takes a long time. That's the only downside of that. It takes a lot of time and a lot of elbow grease. So I think I'm going to sweep her off, apply another coat, go in the house and make sure I have the proper amount of trash bags to cover everything. And I'm going to do the same thing for these panels. I'm going to see what it does if I reapply with this already dried on there. If I reapply it, if it'll scrape off, or if this is screwed already, I'm going to have to figure something else out. So another funny thing is these pods, they're definitely welded aluminum. You can see aluminum here, but this is almost like a plastic thing. So I don't know how that works, but you can see this is one of those that I let dry up too. So that's what we're gonna figure out. I'm gonna reapply to this pod, to both of these steps, and to that panel for the rear deck. And I'm gonna reapply up there. And I'm not gonna do a time lapse or anything. I'm just gonna show y'all the results afterwards. All right, I've reapplied to the back deck piece. I've actually applied to both pod steps now. And I'm running out of the citrus strip. So I've only applied to the parts that were really bad and gooey. And the lid. So now I just gotta wait another 30 minutes to an hour and hopefully it comes off easier this time. Alright, so the second coat of the citrus strip took off a bit more paint, but I'm still not happy with the results of this. So you can see it took off a little bit more, but you can still see the kind of goopy, Play-Doh-y. And this still may be just my initial mess up with letting it dry, but I mean, there's no paint here. But even though it just stripped the paint off, it's not like, it doesn't look like that. Like, that's super clean. I'm done with the stripper for now. These stripped off okay. So did these. That one actually got a good amount of paint off of it, just not all of it. The problem is that what's left on there is that goop, that Play-Doh texture paint. So you can't even sand it right now. But compared to this, I mean, just elbow grease and a sander is really the way to go. I'm not gonna mess with any more of this paint stripper. I'm sure there's better brands or whatever, but I would have much rather just gotten the other half of that done, even though it's such a smaller section, for the amount of time I put into stripping the front deck and the two pontoons and that piece of the back deck. It's just, and this is my fault too, but I didn't even want to take any of this paint off. But my brush kind of slipped and came up here. I really just wanted this. With a sander, you have so much more control. So I got to give this, at least for me, I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, luckily this is an older kind of beat up boat, so I'm not really too worried about it. But on a newer boat, if I was doing this to prep for SeaDek, I'd definitely sand, and I would not end up with paint stripper, you know, or just I should have taped it off, but I just wasn't thinking about that. So anyways, yeah, I'm gonna have to get some touch-up paint for this thing. It's just John Boat grain. It shouldn't be too hard to find. Or maybe I just may paint those spots that I messed up a little bit, maybe some white or something that's not gonna get too hot. So it actually looks a lot better. Now, yes, with the soap came off all the residue, and I'm gonna have to touch up some spots there. But I'm a lot happier with it now that the goop's gone, because the goop kind of, a lot of it just came right, well that's still there, but a lot of it just came right off with that soapy water. So it looked a lot worse than I thought, than it actually was. Still gonna have to sand this down, of course, but it did, if you do it right, you know, just tape off where you definitely don't want any stripper going on. And see, I stripped some of my sides right here too. I have to make sure everything's off of there before I repaint. And I mean, it saved me a lot of time just from sanding, but sanding, it just would have been one time done instead of all this. I did discover something on my pods. So you see we got aluminum, but we've also got, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that is for. I don't know if that's some like super heavy duty primer, but the rest of the boat didn't have that. If y'all can tell me what that is, because I'm almost thinking like this piece almost looks like, yeah, just leave it on there, right? But then this piece is like, no, you definitely want to take it off because it's starting to chip. You want to get down to the bare aluminum. And then here, this is all just bare aluminum. And this piece, same thing. We've got just some major chipping on this side, but the rest of it seems fine. So y'all comment and tell me what that is. I don't know if it's that. It almost feels like a thick, like epoxy or plastic or something, but this one's bare metal. I'm just gonna lightly sand. I don't know if I want to completely sand this off. That seems like a lot of work, but I'd rather do it now before I put my SeaDek down and it starts peeling. Even though the SeaDek back here on these pods is really just, honestly, just kind of aesthetic, but it's gonna bring the whole look together. So see, this is definitely getting sanded because we've got chipping all over it. But yeah, like I said, the video's not over, but I'm done for the day. So next time you see it, hopefully the whole boat looks like this, or I mean just the hatches, right? So paint stripper, just use it right. This is my first time using it. I'll know better next time if I ever use it again. But part of me is just like, I could have got the whole back deck sanded down. It would have been a lot more work, but I would have done it instead of just going through the whole paint stripper thing, right? So that's it. I'll see you guys when I get back to work on this thing. All right, everybody. It's almost been a couple weeks, but I've got the back deck sanded down. Front deck is finished. We are officially done with the stripping of the paint and sanding of the paint for the SeaDek. So let me talk about what I ended up doing. So this is the panel that was already sanded, and I just went and I didn't mess with any more paint stripper. I just sanded it all down to bare aluminum. The only thing I did off camera also is I bought a new hatch, and I kind of had to grind it. I found one on Amazon that was like ½ inch too long and too wide, so I just had to go and grind a little bit off, but I got it to fit good. Some changes that are going to be going on with the original SeaDek plan. I'm going to go ahead and bolt down my foot pedal here, but I'm not gonna SeaDek over it or under it, because eventually if I get like a iPilot or something that's remote controlled, I can just put a little patch of SeaDek where that used to be instead of drilling through my SeaDek. And I did not sand down the rest of this little rail here, because I think it's Hydro Turf. I gotta stop saying SeaDek. The Hydro Turf that I got, I mean, it's kind of pricey for not compared to like if you were to go take your boat and have somebody SeaDek it, but compared to the Amazon stuff. So I'm just gonna paint over this. I've already bought some touch-up paint, which actually blended up pretty good and covered up all this stuff here. As you can see. So we're good. So we are now moving on to going to be moving on to part 3 of the center console build, which is applying the Hydro Turf. So thanks for watching this video. I guess the conclusion would be that if I was doing it the right way, the paint stripper would have helped it out a lot. But I prefer the sanding, even though it took a little longer. You just get so much of a cleaner surface. And this stuff, if you buy the Hydro Turf or the name brand SeaDek stuff, it's expensive. And I want to make sure when I stick it on something, it stays, right? So, like I said, as we're going, and as I've already got the Hydro Turf, so I'm about to start the actual installation video today. And there's been some changes of what I thought the layout was going to be, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. Of course, eventually, I think it'd be nice to have the floor decked out and everything, but for right now, we'll be fine with just our actual fishing platforms, right? One more thing, these pods, they're not going to be getting SeaDecked. I've actually bought some of that truck bed liner spray, and I'm just going to do that to these guys. I just think it'd be easier, and I don't want to put my nice SeaDek on something that's going to be wet like all the time, right? Even though it's supposed to be pretty sustainable to water and all that, I just think it'd be nice to just have just make it a little grippy, you know, for getting in and out of the boat, which is what these are. I've already used them, because when I first got this thing, you guys know I was having some issues with it, and I was standing on these pods working on it on the water, so it was pretty nice. But anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys, and we're gonna move on to the exciting part, which is actually putting the Hydro Turf down on this thing. And then we got some other projects. You see, I've already disconnected all my, dang, that's actually really hard. I've actually disconnected all the switches and stuff, redoing a whole switch panel, doing a whole like panel with all my electronics, wiring and all that on it. So then I can just, if I have an issue, I just remove the whole panel instead of having to dig under the center console and a lot of stuff. And of course, rod storage. It's probably gonna be the 4th video I do. So, thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys next time on another episode of The Everyday Angler.